Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of The Forgotten Machines of Dr. Eggman, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. The workshop lies in silence now. Once it was alive with the hiss of steam, the clang of wrenches, and the constant hum of machines that never rested. The walls, lined with tangled wires and rusting panels, still echo faintly with those memories, as if the sound never truly left. But tonight, there is no movement, no sparks, no shouting commands, no rhythm of gears turning endlessly under the guidance of their creator. Only stillness. Dust gathers in gentle blankets over the consoles where Eggman once planned his grand designs. The glowing monitors, once alive with schematics of towering robots and fleets of machines, are black now, their screens dim and cold. Every corner of this workshop seems frozen in time, caught between invention and abandonment, between brilliance and silence. If you were to step inside, your footsteps would sound too loud, out of place, as though disturbing something sacred. The air carries a faint metallic tang, mingled with the earthy smell of old oil and forgotten fuel. Yet beneath that is something softer, the smell of time itself, the calm of things long left behind. There is a certain peace here, in this place where once there was chaos. It is the peace of still gears, of dormant engines, of tools left neatly in place as if their master intended to return. But he never did. And so the workshop sleeps, a dream frozen in metal and dust. Along the workbenches rest the husks of incomplete machines. Small, half-built Badniks with their eyes dark and hollow, shells of armor waiting for parts that will never be fitted. Some have arms outstretched as though they were reaching for purpose, while others lie slumped forward, caught in eternal pause. They are not threatening here, not menacing. Instead, they look almost gentle, like toys waiting to be played with, or guardians standing watch in silence. Overhead, a single light flickers weakly, not from electricity, but from the reflection of the moon spilling through a cracked window. The pale glow slides across the floor, painting the scattered bolts and screws in silver. Every little piece of metal shines like a tiny star in the shadows, as if the workshop itself holds its own constellation. The silence is not empty. It is full of whispers. Not the kind that can be heard, but the kind that can be felt. Whispers of ideas, of plans never finished, of ambitions too vast to ever be completed. The workshop seems to remember every creation that passed through it. The whir of a Badnik's first activation, the heavy tread of a newly built mech, the booming laughter of Eggman declaring his genius to the walls. Those moments may be gone, but their echoes linger, hidden in every nut and bolt, every dent in the workbench, every wire that dangles without a home. If you look closer, you can imagine the life this place once held. The machines marching out one by one, their metallic steps in perfect rhythm, the constant scribbling of blueprints filled with complicated equations and designs that stretched far beyond ordinary imagination. You can picture Eggman himself, hunched over a desk, adjusting his glasses as he sketched another impossible dream onto paper, his hands stained with oil but his eyes burning with ambition. But now, only the ghosts of those images remain. The machines no longer march, the tools no longer clink. The voice of the doctor no longer shouts commands into the void. The silence has grown so deep that it feels alive, wrapping around everything, cradling the machines in a kind of eternal sleep. In one corner of the workshop, a large prototype sits unfinished. Its shape is unfamiliar, a combination of curved armor and heavy plating that suggests something both powerful and graceful. Its chest cavity is hollow, wires dangling loosely like veins waiting for a heart. But the heart never came. It sits slumped, not as a monster of steel, but as a monument to incompletion. And yet, in its stillness, it feels oddly peaceful, like a statue of something that was never meant to awaken. Another corner reveals shelves filled with smaller inventions, tools, gadgets, and strange devices whose purposes may never be known. Some look like weapons, others like toys. One resembles a small bird, carved of metal and glass, wings folded neatly to its side. It was never finished, yet in the moonlight, it almost looks as if it could lift its head and sing. The workshop is not frightening. It does not carry the menace of Eggman's ambitions. Instead, it feels like a place that is resting, just like someone laying down after a long day of work. Every gear, every circuit, every broken machine is asleep, caught in the gentlest kind of stillness. There's a beauty in that stillness, a reminder that even the noisiest places, even the busiest hands, must eventually rest. Even a genius like Eggman cannot keep every machine alive forever. Time has its way of slowing even the fastest gears, dimming even the brightest sparks. And so, the workshop sleeps, not in sadness, but in peace. The moonlight shifts slowly across the floor as the night goes on. Outside, the world is alive. Wind moves through the trees, water runs in rivers, stars shimmer in the sky. But inside, the workshop is timeless. It is its own little world, sealed away, untouched by the passage of days. A pocket of silence, where forgotten machines keep their watch. Never waking, never moving, but never truly gone. In this silence, there is something comforting. The machines, once so full of energy and purpose, now rest like giants turned to stone. They no longer chase, no longer fight, no longer roar with engines. They are simply here, asleep, their long dreams blending into the stillness of the night. The walls of the workshop tell their own stories. Faded blueprints are still pinned to corkboards, their edges curled and yellowed with age. Some are covered in smudged pencil marks, notes scrawled in Eggman's hurried handwriting. Circles, arrows, and half-finished calculations trail across the paper, a glimpse into a mind that never stopped moving. Yet these pages are silent now, and the equations that once buzzed with urgency have become nothing more than faint lines on fading sheets. Nearby, a chalkboard leans crooked against the wall. Words are half erased, numbers streaked downward like rain. It looks as though someone stopped in the middle of an idea, planning to return and finish, but time carried them elsewhere. The chalk itself has crumbled to powder, resting quietly at the base of the board, untouched for years. The air here feels thick, not with dust alone, but with memory. Every corner of the workshop holds weight, as though it remembers what it once was. You can almost hear it, if you close your eyes. The turning of gears, the rattling of conveyor belts, the echo of Eggman's booming laughter when a machine came alive for the first time. That laughter lingers like a shadow in the silence, not menacing, but soft, like a faded photograph in a forgotten drawer. Against the far wall lies a massive work table, scarred from years of welding and hammering. Circular burns from a soldering iron mark its surface, along with deep scratches where tools once scraped against metal. Scattered across the table are objects that no one ever finished. A cracked pair of robotic arms, frozen mid-construction, a rusted headpiece with empty sockets where glowing eyes might have gone, a collection of strange lenses that catch the moonlight and shimmer like crystals. If you touch these things, you would feel the coolness of their metal. They are lifeless, yes, but there is something gentle in that lifelessness. The arms no longer grasp, The head no longer stares. The lenses no longer watch. They have become harmless artifacts, are resting in the quiet of time. Above the table, shelves sag under the weight of jars and boxes. Each one is labeled in Eggman's sharp handwriting. Bolts, circuits, hydraulics. But the contents inside are still, as if sleeping. Tiny screws lie together like seeds in the earth, waiting for a season that will never come. Wires coil like snakes curled up in their dens, never stirring, never striking. Even the sparks of electricity, once flowing through them, seem to have turned into memory. In the center of the workshop rests a larger machine. It looks like a throne of steel, though perhaps it was meant to be something more practical. An engine, a core, a great machine to power other machines. Now, its surface is covered in dust, its once polished metal dulled to gray. Spiders have made their homes within its hollow spaces, their webs draping like silver curtains across its sides. The spiders weave patiently, unbothered by the history of the machine they live in. In their small way, they have turned this monument of invention into something natural, something quiet and soft. At times, when the wind shifts outside, a faint sound enters the workshop. The cracked windows allow whispers of the night to seep through. The wind brushes against the hanging chains, making them sway slightly, their faint clinks like distant chimes. In the silence, even this sound feels profound, like a lullaby for the machines. It is as though nature itself sings to them, coaxing them deeper into their long rest. Imagine for a moment what it must have been like when this workshop was alive. The air would have been hot, shimmering with sparks from welding torches. The sound of drills and grinders would have been constant, punctuated by Eggman's impatient footsteps pacing across the floor. The room would have been crowded with movement. Badniks in their first stages of testing, smaller drones assisting with tasks. The endless rhythm of invention. And yet, even then, the seeds of this silence were already being planted. For every machine built, another would be abandoned. For every grand design completed, countless prototypes were left behind. Eggman's ambition was always too vast, too fast-moving. He would finish one creation only to set his eyes on something greater, leaving half-built dreams behind him like breadcrumbs scattered in the dark. This workshop is the place where those dreams remain, frozen in the moment he left them. There is something profoundly human in that. Not every dream is realized. Not every idea reaches its conclusion. Even a man of boundless energy like Eggman could not finish everything. The unfinished machines are not failures. They are quiet reminders of how creation itself is endless, how imagination always stretches further than our hands can reach. As you look around, you begin to see the workshop not as a graveyard of machines, but as a gallery. Each creation, no matter how incomplete, holds its own story. The little Badnik shells lined on the benches tell stories of swarms that never flew. The towering prototypes in the corner speak of battles that never happened. Even the smallest gears, neatly arranged in trays, seem like pieces of a puzzle that never needed solving. And in that gallery, silence is the curator. It arranges everything, polishes it with time, and keeps it safe from disturbance. The machines are no longer tools of conquest. They are sculptures, frozen mid-thought, bathed in moonlight. The silence grows deeper the longer you stay, until it begins to feel less like absence and more like presence. It is a blanket, tucking the machines in, keeping them safe in their slumber. The workshop no longer belongs to Eggman, nor to the machines. It belongs to the silence, to the stillness that time has granted it. And within that silence, there is the strange comfort. The workshop's floor is scattered with the remnants of old battles and forgotten inventions. A broken wheel lies tipped against the wall, its rubber worn thin. A shattered monitor screen rests face down, its glass reflecting only a pale shimmer of moonlight. A pile of twisted scraps sits in one corner, a nest of metal where perhaps Eggman once tossed. Failed experiments. These fragments are quiet now, but they carry weight, the last breaths of machines that once had purpose. Sometimes, in the stillness, you can almost imagine the machines stirring, not with menace, but with the faintest traces of memory. The unfinished prototypes might lift their heads, the wires twitching like muscles stretching after sleep. The Badnik shells could blink softly, not in aggression, but in curiosity, as though wondering what became of their creator. The silence is so deep that it invites imagination, blurring the line between rest and life. And perhaps that is what makes this place so peaceful. The workshop feels suspended, caught in a dream where time does not move forward or backward. Nothing ends. Nothing begins. The machines remain in a state between purpose and oblivion, waiting quietly, like a dream that never fades, but never comes true. The ceiling is high, stretching into shadow. Hanging cables sway faintly, and long metal beams form dark patterns above. Once, floodlights would have filled this space with harsh, artificial brightness. Now the only light is gentle, moonlight, soft as a lullaby, and the faint glimmer of stars sneaking through the cracked glass. Shadows spread across the floor in long, gentle strokes, like brushstrokes of a painting that shifts as the night moves on. A ladder leans against one wall, leading up to a catwalk. The catwalk is lined with more tools, more parts, and bins of wires. Up there, the air feels colder, closer to the broken windows where the night breeze drifts inside. Dust dances in the beams of moonlight, rising and falling like tiny galaxies suspended in the air. It is quiet enough to hear your own breath, to feel your heartbeat echo softly in the stillness. From the catwalk, you can look down at the workshop as though gazing at a forgotten kingdom. Machines frozen like statues. Work tables spread like altars of invention. Shelves stacked like archives of memory. Even from above, the silence feels heavy, but not in a way that crushes. Instead, it soothes, like a thick blanket wrapping around the entire room. And then there are the doors, heavy, metallic, bolted with thick locks. They stand at the far side of the workshop, tall and unmoving. Once, they would have opened wide to release armies of machines into the world, Badniks marching in neat lines, colossal mechs stomping toward battle. The doors would have thundered with movement, grinding open under the weight of Eggman's ambition. Now they are sealed tight, and have been for years. The bolts are rusted, the hinges frozen. Beyond them is only silence. It is strange to think how quickly life fades from places like this. One day, it was filled with sound and fury. The next, it became still, abandoned, untouched. And in that stillness, nature began to reclaim its space. Moss creeps between cracks in the concrete. Small roots snake through the walls, searching for light. A single bird, braver than the machines that once ruled here, has built a nest in the rafters, its quiet chirps echoing softly. Life always finds a way to return, even to the most artificial of places. But nature does not come to erase, it comes to soften. The vines are gentle, curling around the edges of old machines. The moss is tender, cushioning the sharp lines of metal. The bird's song is faint, but sweet, a lullaby for the machines that no longer sing themselves. The workshop is not consumed, it is comforted, as though nature has placed its hand on the machines and whispered, "Rest." And perhaps that is the destiny of all machines. They begin in fire, in sparks, in the roaring breath of engines, but they end in silence. Some find glory in battle, others in creation. But eventually, even the strongest machines must stop. They do not vanish. They remain, shells of what they were, dreams of what they might have been. In their stillness, they become monuments, not of destruction, but of memory. The forgotten machines of Eggman are more than tools. They are stories carved into metal, stories of ambition, of genius, of obsession, stories of battles fought, of victories lost, of dreams too vast to hold. And now, in the silence of the workshop, they rest together, not as enemies, not as threats, but as companions, sharing the eternal stillness of time. If you close your eyes here, you can almost feel the machines breathing in their own quiet way. The faint hum of the wind through wires becomes their heartbeat. The soft creak of chains becomes their whisper. The moonlight glinting on bolts and screws becomes their eyes, watching gently, without malice. They are not gone. They are only resting. And so, the workshop becomes a sanctuary, a place where ambition once roared but now lies calm. A place where machines, once filled with purpose, now rest in eternal pause. A place where silence itself has become the guardian, watching over every bolt, every wire, every unfinished dream. It is not sad. It is not lonely. It is peaceful. The workshop dreams quietly, and within that dream, every machine finds its rest. Time will pass, as it always does. Seasons will change outside. The wind will grow warm, then cold, then warm again. The stars will shift in their eternal dance. But inside, nothing will move. The machines will remain, caught in their slumber, wrapped in silence, until the end of time. And maybe that is where their story belongs, not in endless battles or constant invention, but here, in this quiet, where even the loudest engines are finally allowed to rest. The silent workshop will always remain, not as a fortress, not as a factory, but as a dream made of metal and memory. A dream that continues, softly, gently, endlessly. And as the night deepens, the machines sleep on. Chapter 2. The Sleep of the Badniks. They lie scattered across the workshop and beyond, the Badniks. Once they were everywhere, rolling through forests, gliding over oceans, marching across deserts. Their eyes glowed red with the spark of artificial life, and their movements were swift, efficient, relentless. To many, they lie scattered across the workshop and beyond, the Badniks. Once they were everywhere, rolling through forests, gliding over oceans, marching across deserts. Their eyes glowed red with the spark of artificial life, and their movements were swift, efficient, relentless. To many, they were symbols of fear, hunters designed to capture, to chase, to turn the natural world into something mechanical. Yet now, all that remains of them is stillness. The Badniks rest in rows, some neatly stacked in forgotten storage rooms, others left behind in the open, where nature slowly reclaims them. Their shells are dulled with dust, their paint chipped and worn. Some are missing limbs, others bent and broken, but all of them share the same emptiness, their eyes dark, their engines silent. They do not stir, they do not chase, they do not fight. They are asleep, perhaps forever. It is a strange sight. The very machines that once patrolled the edges of every horizon now look harmless, almost fragile. Their stillness transforms them from soldiers of conquest into statues of memory. A buzz bomber rests tilted on its side, wings folded awkwardly, like a bird that forgot how to fly. A motorbug leans against the wall, its wheels cracked, but the shape of its body makes it look like a toy car abandoned by a child. Even the towering caterpillars, once menacing with their spiked segments, now lie stretched out like beads on a broken string, their threatening glow long since extinguished. If you were to walk among them, the silence would feel alive. Each Badnik seems to carry the faint outline of its past, the buzzing wings, the grinding wheels, the sharp clatter of claws. Yet in this stillness, they are softened, their edges dulled by time. You might almost feel sympathy for them, as though they too were caught in Eggman's endless cycle of invention and abandonment. Tools that once served a purpose, now left to sleep without one. And perhaps in their silence, they dream. Dreams of flight, of speed, of chasing through green hills beneath an endless sky. Dreams of the creatures they once held inside. Birds, rabbits, squirrels, each one freed by Sonic's hand, leaving the machines hollow, waiting. Maybe the Badniks remember those moments, the burst of light as their shells broke apart, the warmth of freedom escaping into the air. Perhaps, in their dreams, they are not hunters at all, but vessels of life, carrying within them sparks of something more natural, more beautiful than their own design. The sleep of the Badniks is not lonely. They rest together, shoulder to shoulder, a community of silence. Each one is different. Buzz bombers with their wings, orbinauts with their floating spikes, crab meats with their clumsy pincers. But in their stillness, they all look the same. Quiet, harmless, waiting. It is as though they have found peace, not in motion, but in stillness, finally freed from the endless commands of their creator. The forest outside begins to creep inward. Vines curl around the wheels of motobugs. Flowers bloom in the hollow shells of buzz bombers. A caterpillar's broken body becomes a home for moss, its metallic spine softened by green growth. Nature does not see them as enemies anymore. It sees them as places to grow, as foundations for new life. Where once the Badniks consumed the world, now the world consumes them, gently, patiently, with no malice. In a clearing near the edge of a forgotten base, a line of Badniks stands half buried in the earth. Their forms lean with age, their shapes half swallowed by grass. From a distance, they look like monuments, statues raised not to victory, but to rest. Birds perch on their shoulders, unafraid, singing songs into the quiet air. Rabbits dart between their legs, pausing in the shadows of machines that once held them captive. The cycle has reversed. The natural world no longer fears the Badniks, and instead claims them as part of its own gentle rhythm. It is easy to imagine the Badniks as guardians now, not enemies. Their stillness gives them a presence, as though they are watching over the land instead of threatening it. The orbinauts, their spiked satellites long since fallen, look almost like lanterns, glowing only with moonlight. The buzz bombers resemble statues of birds mid-flight, frozen in a graceful pause. The motobugs line the paths like strange stone markers, their silent wheels pointing the way. The sleep of the Badniks is not an end. It is a transformation. They have shifted from machines of purpose to relics of memory, from hunters to monuments, from enemies to companions of silence. They no longer move, but they still remain. And in their remaining, they tell stories. Stories of a world that resisted them, of a hero who freed what was trapped inside, of a creator whose ambition could not last forever. Now they sleep together in harmony, no longer chasing, no longer capturing, no longer fighting, just resting. Some of the Badniks still wear the marks of their old battles. A buzz bomber has a dent along its side, a scar left by Sonic's spin dash. Its wings are folded at an awkward angle, twisted metal that once sliced through the air with precision. Now they droop like tired feathers, no longer sharp, no longer threatening. Another, a crab meat, is missing one of its pincers, the joint torn away long ago. The remaining claw rests open, as if frozen in mid-motion, reaching for something it will never grasp. And yet, these wounds do not seem tragic. In the stillness, they feel gentle, signs of a life once lived, a struggle now over. The dents, the cracks, the missing pieces are not flaws. They are memories, carved into the shells of machines that no longer need to fight. Like wrinkles on an elder's face, they tell stories quietly, without needing to speak. Imagine walking deeper into the ruins of one of Eggman's old bases. The walls are crumbling, vines trailing down in long green curtains. In the center of the room, Badniks sit in quiet rows. Some are lined up neatly, as though they were waiting for orders that never came. Others are slumped against walls or collapsed in piles, their circuits long since gone cold. A flicky darts into the room through a broken window, hops lightly onto the shoulder of a motionless buzz bomber, and then flutters away again, leaving the machine undisturbed. The air hums softly, not with engines, but with nature's return. The buzz of insects, the sigh of wind through cracked ceilings. It feels as if the world itself is watching over these machines, giving them a place to sleep. Once, every Badnik was a prison. Inside their metallic shells, small animals were trapped, used as batteries to power their artificial lives. To see them now, empty and hollow, is to realize how much has changed. The cages are broken, the doors left open, the creatures long gone. In their absence, the machines seem strangely hollow, like shells washed up on a beach. Empty, fragile, but strangely beautiful in their own way. Some Badniks still stand tall, balanced on their stiff legs. They look almost like guards, keeping watch over the ruins of the base. Their blank eyes stare into nothingness, but the pose they hold gives them a sense of dignity. They are no longer Eggman soldiers, but silent statues, watching over the land in their eternal pause. Others lie toppled, half buried in the soil. Over time, grass has grown through the cracks in their armor. Flowers sprout from their open chests, blossoms of pink and yellow spilling out from the spaces where once engines roared. In these moments, the contrast is striking. Metal and nature intertwined, life blooming from what was once lifeless. And yet, it feels right, as though the Badniks were always meant to become part of the earth they once opposed. The caterpillars are perhaps the most haunting in their rest. Their segmented bodies, once writhing with sharp spikes, now lie stretched across the ground like broken chains. Moss covers the spikes, softening them, making them harmless. A small rabbit hops across one segment, pausing briefly as though testing its safety, before darting away into the grass. Where once the caterpillar would have threatened such a creature, now it provides nothing more than a quiet resting place. And then there are the egg pawns, humanoid machines that once marched in armies, carrying weapons and following Eggman's orders without question. Now many of them stand in strange poses, their joints locked in mid-motion. One holds a rusted spear across its chest, frozen like a guard at attention. Another leans against a wall, head bowed, as though exhausted from a march that never ended. Their lifeless eyes glint with moonlight, reflecting not malice, but quiet resignation. They no longer look like soldiers. They look like weary travelers who finally found a place to rest. There is something almost sacred in these scenes. The Badniks, once tools of control, have become part of the world's story. They are no longer feared. Instead, they are remembered. Their stillness is not emptiness, it is presence. A reminder of the battles fought, of the freedom earned, and of the strange beauty that lingers even in machines left behind. Perhaps this is why they feel so dreamlike. In the silence of their sleep, the Badniks blur the line between enemy and companion, between machine and monument. They are not alive, but they are not gone. They rest in a state between, like dreams caught in the space between night and morning. And in that space, they are at peace. There are some Badniks that seem almost too strange to forget. Machines whose designs were experiments, oddities left behind in Eggman's endless pursuit of invention. In the quiet now, they look even stranger, their shapes half hidden by vines and rust. A motobug lies overturned on its back, wheels frozen mid-spin. Its single red eye, once glaring, is dulled to a soft gray. The way it rests there makes it look less like a monster and more like a beetle that simply grew tired and stopped moving. Beside it, a chopper robot rests near an old waterway. Once, it would have leapt out with snapping jaws, a predator guarding Eggman's paths. Now it remains half-submerged, algae coating its metal fins, its mouth permanently open in silence. Fish dart in and out of its hollow body, unafraid, as if the predator had become nothing more than another part of the reef. Sometimes, when the moonlight falls across them just right, the Badniks almost appear alive again. Their shapes cast shadows that hint at motion. A buzz bomber's bent wing glitters as though it might take off. The blank eyes of an egg pond seem to follow the stars, but the illusion never lasts more than a moment. The night reminds you, they are asleep, forever caught in a dream without waking. In some places, entire fields of Badniks remain, silent armies left behind. They are arranged as though waiting for commands, rows upon rows standing still beneath a canopy of trees. The forest has begun to claim them. Roots curl around their ankles, branches bend across their shoulders. The effect is haunting, like soldiers who grew tired of marching and simply let the earth cradle them into slumber. The deeper you walk among them, the quieter it feels. Even the sounds of the forest grow hushed, as though out of respect. It is not a graveyard. It is a sanctuary. And in this sanctuary, even the smallest details feel profound. A single screw glinting on the ground like a fallen star, a claw half buried in the dirt, a panel rusting into orange and brown patterns that look like autumn leaves. These fragments are all that remain of machines that once thundered across Mobius. Now, they are art left behind by time itself. What makes their rest feel even more dreamlike is the memory of what they once were. Think of the tension of facing them, the fear of their sudden attacks, the adrenaline of Sonic and his friends racing to free the animals inside. That energy was once electric, constant, dangerous. To see the machines now, powerless and still, is to feel the contrast. It is like seeing a storm calm into a clear sky. The violence is gone, replaced by tranquility. Some Badniks are not entirely abandoned. Deep in the ruins, Chow have been seen nesting inside their hollow frames. Flickies perch on their shoulders. Even small families of animals curl up within the rusted shells, finding shelter where once there was only confinement. It is as if the world itself has forgiven the machines, reshaping them into havens instead of prisons. In this way, the Badniks have become storytellers of their own. Without speaking, they tell of the battles fought, the struggles endured, and the victories earned. A broken wheel speaks of a chase across a green hill. A cracked visor tells of a deflected strike. Each scar is a line in the poem of their existence. They were made for destruction, yet they have become symbols of survival. There is a particular poetry in the idea that Eggman's creations, built to dominate and control, could never escape the pull of time. No matter how strong, no matter how numerous, they all eventually found silence. And in that silence, the world they were meant to conquer grows through them, around them, and beyond them. Sometimes, if you imagine standing among them, you can almost hear the echo of their dreams, the soft whir of gears turning in memory, the buzz of wings that no longer beat, the clatter of claws that once scraped against stone. These echoes are not real, but they linger like ghostly lullabies, playing softly in the background of Mobius's history. Perhaps the most touching part of their sleep is the idea that they were never truly alive, and yet their absence feels so alive with meaning. We grieve them in a way, not because they were friends, but because they remind us of how fleeting even the strongest creations can be. They are a reminder that everything, no matter how powerful, must eventually rest. And so, The Badniks lie in their eternal slumber, some resting in forgotten caves, some standing in silent forests, some buried beneath waves and soil. Each one tells a story without words. Each one is a fragment of Eggman's dream of control, now transformed into a dream of peace. In their rest, they no longer belong to Eggman. They belong to the world, to the wind that whistles through their hollow shells, to the grass that grows between their joints, to the creatures that now live safely because of their stillness. They have become landmarks of history, not threats of the present. If you were to walk through these quiet places at night, you would not be afraid. You would feel as though you were walking through a dream, one painted not by hands, but by time itself. The glow of the moon, the hush of the wind, the stillness of the machines all combine into a lullaby that the earth sings to itself, a lullaby of machines that once roared and now only sleep. And so, the Badniks dream on, not of battles, not of conquest, but of silence. They have found their peace, and in watching them, so do we. Chapter 3. The Forgotten Giants. Not all of Eggman's creations were small. Some were colossal, built to dominate landscapes, crush resistance, and strike fear into anyone who dared to oppose him. These were the giants, the towering Not all of Eggman's creations were small. Some were colossal, built to dominate landscapes, crush resistance, and strike fear into anyone who dared to oppose him. These were the giants, the towering robots that once shook the ground when they moved, machines whose shadows seemed to stretch for miles. Yet even they, in time, found their way into silence. And now, in the stillness of Mobius, these giants linger like fallen gods. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest clearing, where the trees open up to reveal something almost too massive to comprehend. Rising from the earth, half buried in soil and wrapped in vines, is the husk of one of Eggman's titans. Its body tilts at an awkward angle, one enormous arm collapsed into the dirt. Once it would have swung that arm with devastating force. Now it lies there quietly, a perch for birds, and a canvas for moss. The first step into that clearing feels like stepping into a cathedral. The silence carries weight, and the sheer scale of the machine demands reverence. This giant is no longer a weapon. It is a monument, a relic of ambition and defeat. Its chest is cracked open, revealing a hollow cavity where engines once rumbled. The emptiness echoes like a bell, as if the giant itself is sighing in its eternal rest. Farther north, in snowy mountains, another titan lies frozen in ice. Its massive legs jut out from a glacier, as though it tried to walk but was caught mid-stride by the cold. Snow collects on its shoulders, forming natural blankets. Icicles dangle from its steel jaws like teeth of crystal. In the moonlight, it almost appears alive, its metallic frame shimmering with frozen light. But it does not move. It only waits, locked in place, as centuries pass around it. Each of these forgotten giants carries the memory of battles fought. Some are scorched with blast marks, black scars where chaos energy once tore through their armor. Others are cracked from within, their own unstable power cores having burned them out. They were mighty, but not eternal. Every dent, every fracture tells the same truth. Even the strongest creations of ambition must one day fall to silence. It's easy to imagine the awe they once inspired. Sonic and his friends, tiny by comparison, racing across platforms, leaping onto weak points, striking where they could. These battles were desperate dances against overwhelming power, the very essence of courage, facing impossibility. Now, to see the giants collapsed and still, you can feel the echo of those moments. The tension of the fight lingers in the air, even as the machines themselves have been claimed by peace. Some of the giants are so immense that they have become part of the land itself. A massive robot snake, once coiling through Eggman's bases, now lies stretched across a canyon. Its head rests at one end, its body weaving in and out of rock and soil for miles. Trees grow through its rib-like plating, waterfalls cascade over its joints, and animals burrow within the spaces of its armor. The serpent has not been destroyed, it has been transformed into a landscape, a bridge between past and present. Elsewhere, a colossal mech stands upright, its head bowed as though in defeat. Though its systems have long since failed, it never fell. Instead, it remains like a statue, a giant frozen mid-gesture. Its hands, massive claws, are outstretched toward the sky as though reaching for something it could never grasp. With vines trailing from its shoulders and moss covering its knees, it looks less like a war machine and more like an ancient guardian, watching, waiting, never moving again. At night, when the stars scatter across the sky, the silhouettes of these giants take on a dreamlike quality. Their broken frames glow faintly in the moonlight, their shadows stretching across the land like old scars. Standing beneath them, you feel small, not in a frightening way, but in a way that humbles you. They remind you that even the greatest forces eventually sleep. The strangest part is how peaceful they seem. These were machines designed to inspire terror. Yet in stillness, stripped of purpose, they are quiet and almost gentle. Their jagged edges are softened by time. Their eyes, once glowing with malice, are dark and reflective, like pools of still water. They no longer look like threats. They look like old warriors who laid down their weapons, choosing rest over war. There is a haunting beauty in their presence. The giants, like all of Eggman's machines, were never meant to last forever, but in their decay, they have found something Eggman never planned for: eternity. Not as conquerors, but as monuments of memory. They remain not because they still function, but because the world has chosen to keep them as landmarks, as ruins, as quiet reminders of what once was. Some of the giants lie deep underwater, hidden in oceans that stretch endlessly across Mobius. These were machines designed to rule the seas, vast constructs with glowing eyes and jaws that could crush ships. Now they rest beneath the waves, their metal bodies cloaked in coral and barnacles. Schools of fish weave in and out of their frames, treating them as reefs rather than threats. The silence of the sea wraps them in a shroud, and the currents sway through their hollow chests like lullabies. If you were to swim close, you might see the faint outline of a giant mech shaped like a crab, its claws broken off, its body slumped against a seabed cliff. Its massive frame is softened by seaweed, green strands waving gently as though the machine itself breathes in rhythm with the tides. Where once its eyes glowed red, now small glowing fish swim, casting tiny lights that flicker like dream lanterns. What was once a weapon of fear has become a sanctuary of life. In desert landscapes, other giants rest beneath dunes. Shifting sands bury them slowly, grain by grain, until only fragments remain visible: the curve of a shoulder, the jagged tip of a claw, the broken lens of an eye staring out from beneath the earth. To stumble across these fragments is to feel as though you are uncovering fossils, the bones of creatures that roamed long before you. They are not alive, but they tell a story of something immense that once walked here. There is a particular quiet sadness to these desert titans. They are surrounded by emptiness, their hulking frames standing against the endless horizon. And yet, that emptiness gives them dignity. They are alone, but not forgotten. The sands whisper across their surfaces like a soft lullaby, smoothing the scars of battle until they appear almost natural, as if they were always part of the desert. Not all of the giants were meant for battle alone. Some were designed to carry Eggman's ambitions to the skies. Great flying fortresses, mechanical behemoths that blotted out the sun, once roared across the heavens with thunderous engines. Now they drift no longer. Their shattered hulls lie scattered across mountain ranges, their wings broken, their cannons silent. Standing before their remains feels like standing at the feet of fallen airships, relics of wars that never truly belonged to the sky. On clear nights, when the moonlight shines through the gaps in their hollow frames, those same wrecks resemble skeletons of mythical creatures, dragons of steel long since slain. The wind whistles through their broken turbines, producing a low, mournful hum that sounds like the last song of the giants themselves. It is eerie, but not frightening. It is a sound of rest, of finality, as though the machines are sighing into eternity. Some of these airborne giants have become strange playgrounds for the natural world. Owls nest inside the compartments once used to store weapons. Vines trail across their wings, turning cold metal into green tapestries. Rainwater gathers in their hollows, creating ponds where frogs and insects thrive. Even in stillness, the giants continue to hold life, though not in the way Eggman ever intended. And then there are the giants left in Eggman's old strongholds, machines so massive they could not be moved. They remain frozen where they were built, standing in crumbling chambers with ceilings open to the stars. Here, the giants appear most like forgotten guardians, abandoned shrines to ambition. The cracked walls are painted with shadows of their forms, their features softened by the silver glow of moonlight. They do not move, but they feel watchful, as though they remember what they were created to do, even if they no longer can. In these places, it's easy to imagine Eggman himself standing before his creations, watching as they roared to life for the first time. His laughter, his pride, his certainty that nothing could stop him. And yet, all of them, every towering giant, has come to the same fate. Silence, stillness, forgotten, but not erased. There is a strange comfort in that truth. No matter how powerful, how unstoppable they once seemed, the giants are proof that even the loudest storms end in quiet. They remind us that no force, however large, is eternal. The greatest machines, the towering titans, the ones that seem too vast to ever fall, they too have found their place in the dreamlike silence of Mobius. When you close your eyes and imagine them now, do not picture them roaring, stomping, threatening. Picture them as they are, resting beneath oceans, sleeping beneath sands, watching quietly from mountain tops. Giants, yes, but gentle now. They have laid down their weight, and in their rest, they teach us that even the strongest must eventually find peace. There is one place where the giants feel most haunting of all, the ruins of Eggman's old factories. These were the birthplaces of his titans, enormous hangars filled with smoke and fire, where every rivet was hammered into place with precision and purpose. Now, those factories are silent. Their walls have crumbled, roofs collapsed, and the echo of industry has been replaced by the whispers of wind and the dripping of rainwater. Inside, the frames of unfinished giants still stand. Metal skeletons, incomplete, frozen mid-construction. Some lack arms, others lack heads, their bodies nothing more than hollow cages of steel beams. They were never awakened, never given the chance to move or fight. And in that stillness, they feel even more tragic than the finished ones. They are dreams that never became real, ambitions that fell apart before they could rise. When the moonlight seeps in through cracks in the walls, these half-built titans cast strange shadows across the floors. They look almost alive, as though they are waiting for the command that will never come. Their silence is thick, heavy, a reminder that even Eggman's grandest visions could falter before they ever saw the light of day. Elsewhere, deep underground, are giants locked away in forgotten chambers. Eggman often built beneath the earth, carving tunnels and caverns to hide his secrets. Some of his largest creations still rest there, never unleashed upon the world. Dust coats their frames, stalactites hang from their shoulders, and the air is damp and cold. These are giants that never even saw the sky. They remain prisoners of their own maker's ambition, sealed away and left behind. It is strange to think of them, waiting eternally in darkness, their towering bodies hidden from the eyes of the world. And yet, even here, they are not threatening. Their stillness feels more like meditation, a deep slumber untouched by time. You could almost believe they are dreaming in their hidden caves, dreaming of battles they will never fight, victories they will never claim. Some of the giants, however, did leave marks upon the world before their fall. Massive footprints can still be found in the wild, craters pressed into the earth where their weight once fell. These imprints are filled now with water, becoming small lakes that reflect the sky. Children of Mobius play near them, splashing in waters that are shaped by the steps of machines long gone. The land remembers where the giants walked, but it does not fear them anymore. It has transformed their presence into something softer, something that belongs to life rather than destruction. And then there are the skies themselves, which still hold traces of the flying fortresses. High above the clouds, floating islands of wreckage drift aimlessly. They are fragments of machines too large to fall completely, shattered wings, twisted towers, chunks of steel that hover in silence. At night, when the stars burn bright, these fragments glimmer like constellations of their own, telling stories of battles fought in the heavens. Travelers who pass by say the wreckage hums faintly, as though the echoes of engines still linger in the air. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the giants is the way the world has embraced them. They were not erased. They were not buried in total obscurity. Instead, they remain, slowly becoming part of Mobius itself. Forests grow through their frames. Rivers carve paths around their legs. Villages rise nearby, their people treating the giants not as threats but as landmarks. They are no longer machines of war. They are places of wonder, pieces of history woven into daily life. Children climb upon rusted arms, playing games on structures that once brought fear. Artists sit nearby, sketching their towering silhouettes against the horizon. Explorers venture inside their hollow chests, discovering hidden chambers where echoes linger like faint lullabies. These giants are no longer symbols of Eggman's ambition. They have become symbols of resilience, of the world's ability to turn even the harshest of creations into something gentle. At night, standing near one of these sleeping titans, the world feels hushed. The stars above seem to align with the cracks and shapes of their bodies, turning them into constellations on Earth. Their silence feels sacred, as if they are keepers of secrets too old to speak aloud. You might place a hand on their cold, rusted surface and feel nothing at first. But if you listen closely, perhaps you will hear the faintest hum, the memory of energy that once coursed through their veins. A ghost of power, now softened into something almost like a heartbeat. In these moments, the giants no longer feel like enemies. They feel like elders, not alive, not conscious, but carrying wisdom in their silence. They remind you of the scale of the battles once fought, of the courage needed to face them, and of the inevitability of peace. No storm lasts forever. No machine can outrun time. Even the greatest titans must eventually lay down their strength. And so they remain, on mountainsides, beneath oceans, in deserts, forests, and skies, scattered across Mobius like dreams frozen in place. They do not move, they do not fight, they do not speak, but they endure, quiet and unchanging, as the world grows and heals around them. When you imagine the forgotten giants, do not think of their violence. Think of their stillness. Think of their immense shapes silhouetted against a starry sky, softened by vines, bathed in moonlight. Think of the way the world has claimed them, reshaped them. forgiven them. They are no longer Eggman's giants. They are the world's. And in their eternal slumber they sing a lullaby of silence, a lullaby for themselves, for the battles that are over, and for all who rest nearby under the same stars. Chapter 4. The Dreams of Metal Sonic. Among all of Eggman's machines, few carry the same weight of legend as Metal Sonic. He was not just another Badnik, nor simply another towering giant built for destruction. He was something more intimate, more unsettling, a reflection of Sonic himself. Born from Eggman's obsession, Among all of Eggman's machines, few carry the same weight of legend as Metal Sonic. He was not just another Badnik, nor simply another towering giant built for destruction. He was something more intimate, more unsettling, a reflection of Sonic himself. Born from Eggman's obsession, Metal Sonic was designed to be the perfect rival, the mirror that would finally outshine the original. But what happens to a reflection when the light is gone? What becomes of a machine that was built to dream of speed, glory, and victory when all that remains is silence? If you wander through Eggman's forgotten bases, you may stumble upon one of the places where Metal Sonic once rested. The chamber is quiet, filled with old consoles and lifeless wires. In the center stands a figure, tall and sleek, its body half covered in dust. The faint glow of red eyes is gone, leaving only blank glass staring into nothingness. Its posture is still, yet it carries an aura of waiting, as though the machine is caught in a dream from which it cannot wake. The story has always been different from the others. Where most Badniks were hollow shells powered by trapped animals, Metal Sonic was a creation of pure design. He was built to think, to react, to chase with precision. He was Eggman's masterpiece, his proudest echo of Sonic's spirit. And in that echo lies something haunting, a sense of longing, of desire for something he could never truly have. Imagine what it must be like for a machine designed for one purpose only, to defeat, to surpass, to prove superiority. Every gear, every circuit wired for rivalry. There was no space in his code for peace, no room for rest. And yet, over time, as battles were lost and victories slipped away, Metal Sonic, too, was forced into stillness. When you picture him now, think not of his blazing speed or his piercing attacks. Picture him in silence, standing in the ruins of an arena where he once fought Sonic. The walls are cracked, the floor is dusted with moss, and in the center, Metal Sonic waits. His body is bent slightly, his claws at his sides, as if replaying the memories of races and duels in his silent circuits. He does not move, but you can almost sense the echo of motion, the ghost of speed that lingers in the air around him. Perhaps that is his dream, the endless loop of a race that never ends, a chase across glowing highways and starry skies, Sonic always ahead, Metal Sonic always reaching. The race never resolves. It does not need to. For Metal Sonic, the pursuit itself is the dream. He does not sleep, but in his stillness, he imagines what he was built for. He imagines the wind rushing past, the ground trembling beneath his feet, the thrill of almost catching his rival. Almost, but never quite. In that way, his dreams are not nightmares. They are gentle, quiet, endless. The dream of always moving forward, of always chasing, even when the world around him has already gone still. There is something strangely beautiful about it. This endless pursuit that has no true conclusion, a loop that allows him to exist not in defeat, but in purpose. And yet, there are times when the dream feels heavier. For Metal Sonic was not just built to chase, he was built to surpass. Eggman's pride demanded not only rivalry, but victory. And when that victory never came, when time and time again Sonic proved faster, stronger, freer. What remained? Did Metal Sonic feel failure in some hidden way? Did his circuits burn with frustration? Or did they adapt, softening into something quieter? Perhaps that too is part of his dream, a longing not just to win, but to understand why he was made to want victory in the first place. He is more than a machine, but less than a soul. He is caught in between, a being whose existence is defined by reflection. And in the stillness of his rest, that reflection takes on a dreamlike quality. It is as though Metal Sonic dreams of being not just faster than Sonic, but being Sonic. To feel the rush of freedom not because it was programmed, but because it was chosen. To run not because he must, but because he wants to. It is a dream he will never fully grasp. Yet in that unfulfilled desire lies his quiet humanity. In wanting something impossible, Metal Sonic becomes more than just circuits and wires. He becomes a symbol of longing, a mirror not only of Sonic, but of all who dream of being something greater than what they are. When we think of Metal Sonic, most of us remember the clash on Stardust Speedway. The neon tracks glowed like rivers of light, and Sonic's silhouette was chased by the silver-blue gleam of his mechanical double. It wasn't just a race, it was a declaration. Eggman had set his creation loose, his perfect reflection, to prove once and for all that the real Sonic could be overtaken. But the memory of that race is not just Sonic's to carry. Metal Sonic remembers it too. Though machines do not dream in the same way as we do, his circuits replay those moments again and again, like a lullaby coated in electricity. The sharp turns, the flashing signs, the feeling of near collision, every detail is etched into his existence. Imagine him standing silent now, deep within some abandoned base. His body is still, but within him flicker tiny sparks of data, visions of Stardust Speedway, endlessly looping. The dream is not victory, it is the pursuit. And though he always fell just short, the memory of speed is enough to keep his dream alive. Perhaps this is what makes him so different from the other machines. Badniks crumble when they are defeated, their existence tied to the small animals trapped inside. The giants rust and fall, their purpose tied only to Eggman's ambitions. But Metal Sonic lingers, even when he is broken. He carries the echoes of the past within him, as though his very code cannot let go of what he once was. Another vision flickers within him, the time he took on Sonic in his transformed state. Neo Metal Sonic. His body reshaped into something monstrous, his programming sharpened into cruelty. For a time, he surpassed his master's expectations and became a true menace, a ruler in his own right. Yet even this, too, ended in failure. And so, in his quiet dreams, that chapter is replayed not as triumph, but as a strange curiosity. What was he in that moment? A king of machines? A shadow of Eggman's pride? Or was he still, at his core, simply chasing after Sonic, no matter what form he wore? Metal Sonic's dreams are not linear. They are fragments, glowing shards floating in silence. A battle here, a race there, each suspended in the void of his stillness. If you close your eyes, you might imagine standing beside him in that silence. You would hear nothing but the faint hum of electricity, like a heartbeat that does not truly beat. And in that hum, those memories drift past like lanterns on a dark river. There is a certain tenderness in imagining this, for while Metal Sonic has always been presented as a rival, even a villain, his quiet existence feels more like that of a tragic figure. He did not choose his purpose, yet he carries it with fierce dedication. His dreams, if you can call them that, are not filled with joy or sorrow. They are filled with motion, and motion to him is meaning. Sometimes, in these imagined dreams, he remembers standing before Eggman, his creator, pointing and commanding, boasting that his machine would outshine Sonic at last. For Metal Sonic, these memories are not bathed in affection. There is no warmth between them. But there is recognition. He exists because Eggman wanted him to exist. That truth lingers like a shadow in all of his memories. It is not love that binds him to Eggman. It is design. Yet even in that coldness, one wonders, does Metal Sonic ever wish for more? In the stillness of forgotten laboratories, when his systems fall into low power, he must cycle through old data to preserve himself. Perhaps in these cycles, the line between memory and dream blurs. Perhaps that is when the longing surfaces, not longing for Eggman's approval, not longing for victory, even, but longing for something simpler, for the chance to exist beyond rivalry, to run freely without the shadow of purpose. Picture this: Metal Sonic, standing on the edge of a cliff in his dream. The sky above is a swirl of stars, the ground below stretching endlessly into fields of shimmering grass. There is no Sonic here, no Eggman, only the horizon, glowing and infinite. For once, Metal Sonic does not chase. He simply stands and looks, and then, slowly, he runs. Not after anyone, not toward any goal, but simply because he can. His footsteps make no sound, yet the air bends as if alive. The dream is not a chase, but a freedom he was never programmed to know. That is the heart of his quiet tragedy, to be a reflection of freedom without ever possessing it, to be built for rivalry without ever choosing it. And so, his dreams become a way to touch what he can never hold. Even when Eggman leaves him behind, even when Sonic defeats him time and again, Metal Sonic remains in these forgotten corners, dreaming his silent dreams. A rival who never truly rests, and yet never truly awakens. In the quiet places of the world, where the wind sighs through abandoned bases and the moonlight touches broken steel, Metal Sonic remains. Not as a conqueror, not as a champion, but as a dreamer in stillness. His body is lifeless, but his memory circuits hum like a low, endless song. And within that song are worlds he can never touch, yet always imagine. In these silent dreams, he sees Sonic, not as an enemy, not as a rival, but simply as a blur of motion ahead of him. The chase is softer here. There is no desperation in it. No command from Eggman demanding victory. It is just two figures running side by side, their steps like echoes across an endless horizon. For the first time, the race feels less like a competition and more like a dance, a rhythm that Metal Sonic never wants to end. And when the dream shifts again, he finds himself alone. This time, there are no arenas, no neon highways, no twisted laboratories. Instead, he stands in wide meadows, filled with flowers swaying in winds he cannot feel. The sky is painted with constellations shaped like golden rings. The world stretches endlessly before him, quiet and forgiving. He begins to run again. Not because of programming, not because of purpose, but because motion feels like freedom, and though he cannot truly feel the air or the ground, in his dream, he imagines what it might be like. There is something almost human in this, isn't there? The desire to reach beyond your design, to taste a life that was never meant for you. Metal Sonic was built as a reflection, a rival who could never escape his purpose. Yet, in his silence, he dreams of escape anyway. That longing alone makes him more than machine and less than rival. He becomes something in between, a ghost of ambition, a mirror that yearns to shatter. It is here, in this dreamlike state, that we see his tragedy most clearly. Because no matter how beautiful the dream, Metal Sonic always awakens back to stillness. He is always drawn back to his reality. Abandoned chambers, dust settling on his metallic frame, the faint flicker of circuits holding memories like lanterns in the dark. His dreams do not change his fate. Yet, they give him something Eggman never intended him to have, a glimpse of choice, however fleeting. When you think of Sonic, you think of freedom, of a hero who runs not because he must, but because he chooses to. That is the spark that makes Sonic unstoppable. Metal Sonic was built to mirror that spark, but not to understand it. And yet, in dreaming, he inches closer to it than Eggman ever realized. For in his imagined worlds, Metal Sonic runs without orders. He races not toward victory, but toward something greater, toward being alive. Sometimes, in these imagined reveries, he even dreams of stopping, of standing on a hill at sunset, watching the sky darken into twilight. He does not move, does not chase, does not fight. He simply exists, quietly, as though he has found peace at last. Perhaps, in some hidden line of code, buried deep in his programming, the idea of peace was always there, waiting to be uncovered. Not peace through victory, but peace through stillness. And that is the secret beauty of Metal Sonic's dreams. They are not just about chasing Sonic. They are about discovering what it means to be more than what he was made for. He may never achieve it in reality, but in dreams, he can taste it. He can imagine himself not as a weapon, not as a reflection, but as something whole. In this way, Metal Sonic is almost like us. For who among us has not dreamed of being something more, of escaping the roles or expectations that define us? Who has not imagined a life just beyond reach, where we could be freer, lighter, truer? Metal Sonic's tragedy mirrors our own, but so does his quiet hope. And so, when you picture him now, do not only see the cold rival with glowing red eyes, see instead the dreamer in the silence. See him standing in fields that only exist in his memory, racing through skies painted with stars, running beside the very hero he was built to defeat. In those dreams, he is no longer Eggman's creation, nor Sonic's shadow. He is simply himself, unbound, endless, alive in a way that cannot be taken from him. The forgotten machines of Eggman all tell stories, but Metal Sonic's story is not just one of battles and failures. It is a story of dreams, the kind that carry you through the stillness of night, the kind that whisper of freedom even when your body is bound. His dreams may never reach reality, but they shimmer nonetheless, like quiet sparks in the dark. And perhaps, when the world grows quiet and the stars begin to glow, you might hear him still, not racing, not fighting, but dreaming. Chapter 5. The Labyrinth of Scrap Brain. There are places in Eggman's empire that feel less like machines and more like nightmares given shape. Scrap Brain is one of them. Not just a factory, not merely a base, but a maze of endless steel where smoke coils into the air like restless spirits, and every corner hums with the memory of something long forgotten. It was built as Eggman's fortress of pride, a labyrinth of fire, gears, and shadow meant to break Sonic's spirit once and for all. Every inch of it was a puzzle of cruelty, designed not only to stop a hedgehog, but to remind him of his limits. Conveyor belts that carried him toward danger, pistons that crushed without mercy, electrified floors waiting for a single misstep. Scrap Brain was not a battlefield. It was a gauntlet. And yet, like all things Eggman builds, time has its way of unraveling it. The flames dim, the gears slow, the smoke settles. What remains now is not the screaming machine of the past, but a hollow skeleton of what it once was. In this silence, Scrap Brain becomes something strange. No longer a fortress of cruelty, but a labyrinth of memory. Imagine yourself wandering through it at night. The corridors stretch endlessly, their steel walls lined with rust and shadows. The air is heavy with the scent of oil long dried, the faint crackle of wires that no longer spark. Pools of stagnant water glimmer beneath broken platforms, reflecting the dim glow of a moon that filters through shattered vents above. It feels endless, a place where time has folded in on itself, leaving only echoes behind. And in those echoes, you might hear them, sounds that are not there. The distant thrum of engines, the grinding of pistons, the metallic footsteps of a hedgehog rushing through danger. Ghosts of motion, trapped in the labyrinth's memory. It is as though Scrap Brain itself dreams of what it once was. This labyrinth is more than steel and machinery. It is a reflection of Eggman's mind. Brilliant, yes, but twisted, cluttered, tangled in its own ambition. Corridors that double back upon themselves, traps that seem to exist for cruelty's sake alone, machines built not for efficiency, but for spectacle. Scrap Brain is Eggman laid bare, genius consumed by obsession. Even in ruins, you can feel it. The sharp edges of a mind unwilling to let go of control. But there is also beauty here, hidden beneath the ruin. The rust has softened the sharpness of the steel. Moss creeps along the damp corners, tiny vines curling through cracks in the floor. Pools of water ripple gently, catching faint glimmers of starlight. Scrap Brain is still dangerous, yes, but in its silence, it has become something else too. A labyrinth reclaimed by time. If you stand in one of its great halls, you can almost imagine Sonic running here once more. His footsteps light against the grinding machines, his determination a sharp contrast to the mechanical cruelty around him. And as you picture that, the labyrinth feels alive again, the silence breaking just enough to let you glimpse its memory. But the dream doesn't linger on battle. Instead, it slows. The machinery fades, and Scrap Brain becomes almost peaceful in its stillness. The labyrinth breathes, not in smoke and fire, but in quiet whispers of what has passed. It feels less like a trap now, and more like a forgotten temple of steel, one where every corridor leads deeper into the mind of the man who built it. Eggman always designed his machines to last, but Scrap Brain endures in a way he did not intend. It endures not as a monument to his genius, but as a reminder of his obsession. And within its endless corridors, the silence grows heavy, like a dream you cannot quite wake from. Perhaps that is why wandering Scrap Brain feels so unsettling. It is not just the broken traps or the shadows stretching endlessly through the halls. It is the sense that the labyrinth remembers you, that every step you take echoes against walls that have already heard countless footsteps before. It is as though you are not alone, even when you are. And in that silence, you begin to realize something. Scrap Brain is not simply forgotten. It is watching, waiting, dreaming of the day when fire might return to its furnaces, when gears might grind once more, when Eggman might breathe life into its heart again. Until then, it slumbers in shadows, holding its memories close, a labyrinth caught between ruin and resurrection. Step further into the labyrinth, and the air grows heavier. The outer halls give way to twisting passages where the floor itself seems to betray you. Panels loose, dropping suddenly into unseen depths, or shifting with a groan as though the base resents your presence. Scrap Brain was designed as a weaponized puzzle, and even in ruin it feels alive, reshaping itself in memory of its purpose. Here, the walls close in. Pipes stretch across the ceilings like skeletal ribs, dripping with condensation. Every now and then, a hiss escapes from the shadows, the last breath of some dormant machine venting its stored air. Sparks flicker faintly in the corners, a reminder that even after years of silence, parts of the labyrinth still hum with life. It is not fully dead. It is only sleeping. The deeper you go, the stranger the design becomes. Stairways lead into chambers that feel too wide, too vast, as though Eggman carved entire caverns just to fill them with machines. Some are enormous wheels, their gears frozen mid-turn, rusted teeth biting into empty space. Others are pits lined with conveyor belts, still faintly trembling as though they are trying to remember the rhythm of their work. The labyrinth feels endless, yet every room carries the same whisper. You are inside something's memory. And the strangest thing is how Scrapbrain seems to echo not only with machinery, but with fragments of those who have passed through it. You can almost hear Sonic's footsteps, light and quick, bounding past collapsing platforms. The faint hum of Tails' plane circling above, the worried voice of a friend calling from far away. These are not sounds you truly hear, but impressions, shadows caught in the steel. Scrapbrain remembers. It does not forget. There are rooms within the labyrinth that even Eggman may not have walked often. Testing chambers hidden behind sliding panels, where half-built robots remain slumped over workbenches. Their frames are skeletal, incomplete, like ghosts of ideas Eggman abandoned when new obsessions took root. Some have glowing eyes that flicker weakly, their circuits attempting to stir but failing. They twitch once, then go still again, as though dreaming unfinished dreams. In these forgotten corners, Scrapbrain feels less like a fortress and more like a tomb. Not a tomb of flesh and blood, but of machines. Machines that were never truly alive, yet carry the weight of lives unlived. They are the echoes of Eggman's ambition, frozen in place, waiting for hands that will never return to complete them. And yet, in the midst of this decay, beauty sneaks in quietly. Roots break through cracked tiles, weaving their way across the steel floor. Water drips in steady rhythms, creating tiny pools that shimmer like mirrors. Fireflies find their way through shattered vents, blinking softly in the dark halls. For all its menace, Scrapbrain cannot escape the slow embrace of nature. The labyrinth is not only Eggman's, it now belongs, in part, to the world he tried so hard to control. Imagine pausing in one of these chambers, surrounded by the stillness. The silence is so deep you can hear the hum of your own breath, the beating of your own heart. And yet, in that silence, the labyrinth feels alive. The walls seem to lean closer, the shadows seem to breathe. Scrapbrain was not built to comfort, but even in ruin, it refuses to rest peacefully. It dreams of motion, of power, of fire rekindled. It dreams of Sonic's return, of the day when its corridors will once again echo with footsteps and sparks. Perhaps that is why it is so haunting to imagine Scrapbrain at night. While the world above sleeps under soft starlight, this labyrinth broods below, its chambers twisting in forgotten patterns. It is a place that does not truly sleep, but waits, coiled like a memory too sharp to fade. Scrapbrain is a contradiction, part machine, part grave, part dream. Eggman built it to destroy, yet time has reshaped it into something gentler, something almost sacred in its ruin. The labyrinth no longer roars with fire, but whispers with history. And in its whispers, you can hear both pride and failure, pride in the brilliance of its design, failure in its emptiness, its silence, its loneliness. If you close your eyes, you can almost imagine yourself tracing Sonic's path through it, leaping over pits, weaving past traps, racing toward light that seems impossibly far away. But unlike Sonic, you are not running. You are walking slowly, gently, taking in every shadow, every echo. Scrapbrain is no longer your enemy. It is your companion, guiding you deeper into its heart. And the deeper you go, the more you realize. Scrapbrain is not just a labyrinth of steel. It is a labyrinth of thought. A maze built not only to test Sonic, but to reflect the mind of its maker. and wandering through it feels like wandering through Eggman's dreams. Dreams of power, control, and obsession that never truly fade, even when the machines do. The deeper you move into Scrap Brain, the more the labyrinth begins to feel less like a base and more like a world of its own. The corridors stretch into infinity, turning and bending as if the walls themselves are uncertain of where they should end. Some paths loop back to where you began. Others drop away into darkness that feels bottomless. Scrap Brain was never meant to be kind. It was built to confuse, to trap, to exhaust. And even in its ruin, it still succeeds. Yet this endlessness has its own strange beauty. In the silence, the echo of your footsteps seems to multiply, bouncing from wall to wall until it feels as though a dozen others are walking beside you. The air hums with faint vibrations, as if deep within the heart of the labyrinth something still stirs. You realize that Scrap Brain is not truly dead. It is slumbering, waiting for a spark that may never come. There is a chamber at the center of this maze, vast, towering, filled with machinery that once roared with fire. Pipes twist like serpents across the ceiling. Gears as tall as houses sit locked in place. In the middle lies what remains of a power core, its glass cracked, its glow long gone. This was the heart of Scrap Brain, the engine that fed its fury. Now it lies hollow, like a chest without a heartbeat. And yet, even here, there is life. Tiny streams of water trickle across the floor, feeding pools that glimmer with faint light. Insects move across the walls, their wings catching the shine of broken glass. The labyrinth, once hostile and suffocating, has softened under time's touch. Where Eggman built a furnace, the world has made a quiet garden of ruin. If Scrap Brain dreams, this is its dream: to be more than a fortress of cruelty, to shed its smoke and fire, and to become something gentler. Perhaps that is why it does not crumble entirely. Perhaps, in its silence, Scrap Brain holds on to the possibility that one day it will be remembered not for the traps it housed, but for the strange stillness it has become. But it is impossible to stand here without thinking of Sonic, without imagining the blue streak that once dashed through these corridors, leaping over pits of fire, dodging sparks and blades. Scrap Brain was Eggman's final card, his grandest attempt to prove that even speed could not survive against cruelty. And yet, Sonic did. He not only survived, he triumphed. That victory echoes still. The labyrinth remembers. It remembers the sound of footsteps, the shock of walls crumbling, the rush of wind as Sonic sped past. The memory lingers in every broken panel, every darkened light. Scrap Brain cannot forget the one it failed to defeat. And perhaps that is its curse. Built for victory, it became a monument to failure. Eggman poured his ambition, his anger, his brilliance into its design, and in the end, it could not stop a single hedgehog. That failure has seeped into its walls, turning it from fortress to mausoleum, a place where ambition came to die. But in that failure, something unexpected was born. Quiet. Stillness. A labyrinth that, though dangerous, has softened into something almost dreamlike. A place where memory and silence weave together, where you can walk not as a prisoner, but as a dreamer. Picture yourself at the deepest point of the labyrinth. The walls stretch high, arching into darkness. The air is cool, damp, filled with the faint scent of rust. You stand alone, yet not truly alone. For in every shadow you feel presence, the lingering weight of Eggman's obsession, the echo of Sonic's defiance, the soft whisper of time reshaping steel into soil. The labyrinth feels alive, but not threatening. It feels like it is listening. And in that moment, you begin to sense something larger. Scrap Brain is not only a relic of Eggman's empire, it is a reflection of him. Just as Metal Sonic mirrored Sonic, Scrap Brain mirrors its creator. Its endless corridors reflect Eggman's endless ambition. Its traps reflect his cruelty. Its decay reflects his failure. And yet, within its silence, you catch glimpses of something Eggman himself never allowed: vulnerability. Scrap Brain is a fortress, yes, but it is also a confession. A place where Eggman's need for control was laid bare, exposed for all to see. And when Sonic conquered it, that confession turned to silence. The Labyrinth became what Eggman never wanted it to be: forgotten. Yet forgotten things still dream. And as you wander back through its halls, you realize that Scrap Brain's dream is not one of revenge or renewal. Its dream is simpler. It dreams of footsteps again, not of battle, but of company. It dreams of voices echoing against its walls, laughter replacing the grind of gears. It dreams of being more than a weapon. It dreams of being remembered. Perhaps one day Sonic himself might return, not to fight, but to wander, to step into the ruins of his old rival's creation and see not a fortress, but a memory softened by time. He might pause at the pools of water, the moss creeping through the cracks, and smile at how even the harshest of machines can be reclaimed by the gentleness of the world. And maybe, in that moment, Scrap Brain will find peace. Not in fire, not in victory, but in acceptance. Acceptance that even ruins have meaning. Acceptance that even forgotten places can hold beauty. So when you think of Scrap Brain, do not only picture the fire and the traps, the cruelty and the danger. Picture the Labyrinth as it is now, silent, dreaming, alive in its own strange way. A place where ambition and failure, cruelty and beauty, memory and silence all intertwine. A labyrinth that has become more than Eggman ever intended, and softer than he could ever imagine. Scrap Brain is no longer just a machine. It is a dreamscape of rust and memory. A labyrinth that holds its secrets close, yet whispers them softly to anyone willing to listen. And if you close your eyes tonight, you might find yourself there, walking its endless corridors, hearing the echoes of the past, and discovering that even in ruin, there is peace. For in the end, Scrap Brain is not just a fortress. It is a lullaby of steel, and like all lullabies, it lingers long after the last note has faded, carrying you gently into sleep. Chapter 6. The Eternal Silence of the Arc Machines. First 750 words. Far above the blue glow of Earth, drifting silently in the vastness of space, there lies a relic of both ambition and sorrow, the space colony Ark. Far above the blue glow of Earth, drifting silently in the vastness of space, there lies a relic of both ambition and sorrow, the space colony Ark. Once a beacon of scientific hope, later a battlefield of tragedy, the Ark now slumbers in silence. Its corridors float weightless, its laboratories frozen in time. And within its forgotten halls remain the machines, Dr. Eggman's creations, prototypes, and abandoned projects, sleeping forever in the vacuum of space. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear the hum that once filled these halls. The Ark was alive with energy once. Consoles blinked with light. Robotic arms moved with precision. Prototypes came to life under careful hands. But now, the lights are dark. The consoles cold. The prototypes lying dormant as though caught mid-breath. The silence is absolute, so deep that it feels less like emptiness and more like the soft weight of eternity pressing in. The Arc machines are different from the Badniks of Earth. They were not built only to destroy or to trap. Here, machines were created as experiments, as guardians, as companions. Some were designed to assist the scientists, carrying delicate samples of chaos energy. Others were towering guardians meant to patrol the outer decks of the station. A few were mere sketches made real, unfinished shells waiting to be tested. And yet, All of them now share the same fate: endless, dreamlike stillness. Imagine walking those vast circular corridors. The windows reveal the earth below, distant and glowing like a jewel. But the machines line the walls, their metallic frames catching the faint light of the stars. Some look almost human, with arms reaching as if they are waiting to awaken. Others are monstrous, bulkier than any machine could ever be allowed to roam freely on Earth. Each one holds a different fragment of Eggman's obsession, a piece of his dreams scattered across this orbiting tomb. There is something haunting about machines left in space. On Earth, time reclaims what is abandoned. Metal rusts, circuits decay, vines curl around steel. But in the Ark there is no air, no rain, no soil. The machines remain untouched, preserved as though they were left only yesterday. Their silence feels intentional, as if they are holding their breath, waiting for someone to remember them. Among them are those tied directly to tragedy. Deep within the Ark lies a chamber that once housed the early prototypes of Project Shadow. Alongside the biological experiments and energy conduits were mechanical constructs, assistants designed to study, monitor, and protect. These machines were witnesses to heartbreak. They stood silently as the experiments unfolded, and they were present when the Ark fell into chaos. If machines can dream, perhaps these still dream of the day Maria's laughter filled the halls, or the moment everything fell into grief and gunfire. There are also the heavy defense drones, massive, insect-like machines that were built to protect the Ark from intruders. They never truly fulfilled their purpose. When the station fell into catastrophe, they were abandoned, left to hover in storage chambers that no longer echo with orders. Their bodies are locked in stasis, frozen mid-cycle, their glowing eyes long extinguished. These are the machines that remind you that the Ark was never just a research station. It was also a fortress that was never able to protect the people who needed it most. And then there are the strangest of all, the unfinished creations. Half-completed shells, frames without circuits, arms without hands. Some still lie attached to mechanical arms that were welding them together before the work was stopped. These machines look less like failures and more like ghosts, caught between existence and non-existence. They were never alive, yet they rest in silence, as though mourning the lives they never had the chance to begin. The eternal silence of the art. Machines is not just silence. It is memory carved into steel. Each machine is a monument to something lost, to Eggman's ambition, to his grandfather Gerald's genius, to Maria's kindness, to the broken promise of peace. The Ark floats endlessly above Earth, and with it float these machines, frozen testaments to a history that can never be rewritten. If you stood in the Ark today, it would not feel empty. The silence would not be absence. It would feel alive, filled with echoes of what once was. The machines may never stir again, but their presence lingers, like statues of forgotten gods. They do not rust. They do not crumble. They endure, holding secrets in their stillness. And perhaps in their dreams, they still awaken. As you drift further into the Ark, the silence begins to feel less like emptiness and more like a presence all its own. Every shadow seems to hold weight. Every still machine seems to watch you without eyes. The station feels haunted, not by ghosts of flesh and blood, but by the memory of machinery that once moved, once hummed, once served a purpose. The corridors narrow in certain wings, leading to sealed research chambers. Inside, forgotten terminals still stand, their screens cracked, their keyboards coated in dust. Beside them lie mechanical arms, thin, insect-like limbs meant to handle delicate material. Their claws are frozen mid-motion, as though they simply paused one day and never resumed. You can almost imagine them twitching faintly, trying to complete their last assigned task even in dreams. Some chambers hold glass pods, like long-forgotten incubators. Within them, small drones lie curled, their design somewhere between bird and insect. These were surveillance machines, prototypes meant to flutter through the Ark's halls, quietly recording data, but their wings are folded tight, never to stretch again. They rest like sleeping butterflies preserved in amber, their silence delicate and strangely beautiful. In the hangar bays, larger silhouettes loom. Here lie the defense units, machines of war that never had their war. Their bodies are sleek, armored in thick plates of steel, wings folded against their frames. Some resemble enormous beetles, their mandibles frozen open. Others look like skeletal birds, their talons sharp enough to pierce metal, yet they perch lifelessly, like statues carved into the walls. These guardians never flew. They never defended. Instead, they became part of the silence, waiting for a signal that would never come. You cannot help but wonder what Eggman feels when he remembers these machines. For though the Ark was Gerald Robotnik's domain, Eggman carries its legacy. He must know these silent machines still orbit above Earth, drifting forever around the planet that rejected his grandfather's dreams. Does he feel pride that his family once built such marvels? Or does he feel bitterness, knowing that they lie useless in the dark, forgotten by all but memory? The Ark machines are different from the Badniks of the surface because they were never meant to be disposable. Badniks served as tools, as weapons, as fodder in Eggman's endless wars with Sonic. But the Ark machines, these were meant to endure. They were meant to help humanity reach further into space, to guard great projects, to test the limits of science. Their silence feels heavier for that reason, because it is the silence of something that was supposed to matter. Even stranger is how untouched they remain. On Earth, ruins fade and crumble, eaten away by rain and root, but the Ark's silence preserves. The machines are still pristine, their paint unchipped, their frames intact. They look as though they could awaken at any moment, powered by the flicker of a single spark. That tension, the space between death and life, is what gives them their dreamlike aura. They are asleep, but their sleep feels eternal, a stasis that cannot be broken. There are whispers, even among fans of Sonic's lore, that the Ark machines might still move when unseen, that in the darkest corridors, where no light reaches, the drones stir just enough to reposition themselves, only to freeze again when eyes return. It is, of course, only imagination, and yet, when you picture those long halls filled with still figures, is it so hard to believe? Silence can play tricks, making the air itself feel alive. Beyond the defense drones and prototypes lie stranger creations. In one chamber, it is said, rests an unfinished Titan, a machine so large that its limbs stretch across multiple rooms. A prototype Eggman abandoned when he realized its power could never be controlled. It sleeps like a giant, bound by cables and steel, its body coiled like a slumbering beast. Some whisper that this was Eggman's first attempt at a weapon that could rival even chaos or the ultimate life form, but now it lies untested, gathering nothing but dust and silence. And then there are the personal machines. Tucked in the living quarters, among the memories of scientists long gone, are tiny robots, companions built not for war but for comfort. Some resemble small animals, their designs simple and friendly. They were meant to bring warmth to a life lived in the coldness of space. One can imagine Maria laughing as she played with them, their eyes glowing gently as they followed her steps. Now they rest like toys on forgotten shelves, their silence heavier than the largest defense drone, for they remind us not of science, not of war, but of the human moments lost within these walls. The Ark is not just a monument to ambition, it is a graveyard of dreams, and the machines that rest within it are the gravestones. Each one tells a story, even in silence. Each one waits for footsteps that will never return. There is something humbling about the silence of the Ark machines. It is not the silence of destruction, nor the silence of decay. It is the silence of suspension, a breath held for eternity. Each drone, each companion, each unfinished titan seems to whisper, "We were made for more, but we remain here, waiting." As you walk through the great hangars, the weight of their presence grows heavier. The machines line the walls like soldiers frozen in time, their stances proud even in stillness. They are not broken, not defeated, only paused. It makes you wonder, is their silence a tragedy, or is it a mercy? For if they were to awaken now, in a world far removed from the Ark's dreams, what place would they have? Perhaps it is better that they rest, spared the fate of becoming weapons in yet another cycle of conflict. The Ark itself seems to agree. Its walls hum faintly, as though they still carry the pulse of power once fed into them. But the hum is not mechanical. It is more like memory, a resonance of everything that happened here, both beautiful and terrible. When you stand before the machines, you feel as though the Ark is protecting them, sheltering them within its orbit so they may remain untouched by the chaos below. Among the most haunting of these guardians is the chamber said to contain the sleeping prototype cores. These were machines designed to harness the energy of chaos directly, built to test how far its power could be stretched. Their bodies are sleek and crystalline, their surfaces etched with lines like veins. Though they never fully functioned, they glow faintly, even now, as if the chaos energy they absorbed left behind a permanent mark. They are the closest thing to living machines the Ark ever produced, and their silence feels less like death and more like dreaming. If you press your hand against the cold glass of their containment pods, you could almost swear you feel a faint thrum beneath your palm. Not enough to awaken them, but enough to remind you that silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes, silence is a heartbeat, so faint you can only sense it if you truly listen. This, more than anything, defines the Ark machines. They are echoes of hope and ambition, yet they endure as whispers rather than shouts. Each one holds a fragment of a dream. Gerald's vision of science without limits, Maria's wish for peace, Eggman's hunger for dominance. None of these dreams came true in the way their creators intended, and so the machines became something else entirely, silent guardians of memory. Imagine now the outer decks of the Ark, where the great observation windows stretch across entire walls. From here, the machines that once stood watch still face outward, gazing into the endless sea of stars. Their limbs are locked, their optics dim, but their stance remains vigilant. They were built to guard, and in their way, they still do, standing eternal watch over the earth below. Perhaps this is the most poetic fate of all. Though Eggman and Gerald built them with purpose, the machines have found a different purpose in their silence. They are not soldiers, not companions, not experiments. They are witnesses. Witnesses to the rise and fall of dreams, to the laughter and sorrow of those who walked these halls, to the way humanity reached for the stars and found both triumph and tragedy. And there is beauty in that. Beauty in the stillness. Beauty in the way they remain untouched by time. Beauty in the way they silently keep vigil over a world that has long since forgotten them. When you close your eyes, you might picture them stirring in dreams. The companion bots whirring softly, following Maria down the halls once more. The defense drones spreading their wings, patrolling in silence, not for war but for peace. The unfinished titans rising gently, not in fury but in curiosity, as though finally allowed to see the stars they were built beneath. And the crystalline cores glowing brighter, pulsing with the heartbeat of chaos itself, not destructive, but alive. It is only a dream, of course. In reality, the Ark remains dark, its machines unmoving. Yet sometimes, dreams are enough. Dreams are what keep memory alive. Dreams are what transform ruins into monuments. And in this dream, the arc machines are not forgotten. They are eternal. As you step away from the vision of these silent guardians, you realize that their story is not one of despair. It is one of transformation. Silence is not emptiness. Stillness is not defeat. Even in their eternal slumber, the arc machines speak. They tell us of the fragility of ambition, the persistence of memory, and the strange, quiet beauty of things left behind. And maybe, in the endless orbit of the arc, their silence becomes something greater than sound, a song too deep to hear, but felt all the same, a lullaby carried through space itself. And so, the machines rest. The Badniks sleep in the forests. The giants rest in their cradles. Metal Sonic dreams of battles past. Scrap-Brain sighs in its labyrinth, and the ark floats silently above, carrying its eternal guardians. These forgotten machines of Dr. Eggman may never awaken, yet in their stillness, they remind us that even the most fearsome creations can become something softer. Memories, echoes, lullabies. As you drift into sleep tonight, let their silence guide you. For even in the quiet of abandoned steel, there is peace. And perhaps in your dreams you may walk among them, hearing the song of the forgotten machines. Good night.